Welcome to another edition of the Vinyl Word Podcast. I'm Steve Beach.
And I'm Brian Mayer. Hello.
And since we are finally done with Ms. Migsy, we have another incredible record just for you, don't we, Brian?
I have been waiting for this moment.
Yes, you have.
Maybe my entire life.
Yes, you have.
Steve, you ever seen those that moment in every sports movie where the coach grabs the athlete and says, "Are you ready for this?"
Yes.
I've been ready for this my whole life. So the record that we are doing today is Dr. Earl A. Goldsmith, Tells Your Son About Sex. That's the record. Tells Your Son About Sex. It's two sides. We're going to do side one, which is an introduction for the parents. Side two, which we will do next, is that you listen to with your son together in a way to make an uncomfortable situation even more so.
Right.
So the purpose of this side is to give the parents information and a little bit of the introduction here. It says that they don't propose that the record will answer all the questions that your child will ask, but they will give a basic foundation of knowledge, which every responsible parent will want their child to acquire. This is my favorite part, Steve. Information is presented in a professional yet easy to understand manner, prepared for and directed to children between the ages of 8 and 12.
8
years old. And he argues in the record that it should start even earlier than that.
Yes, he does.
But we also, the information in a professional and easy to understand manner. How professional is he, Steve?
Very professional. Almost cold.
Yes. So professional that he kind of loses it in some ways.
Yes, he does.
Sex is a wonderful, beautiful thing, and it kind of is cold and clinical here.
It gets lost a little bit.
Yeah, but Dr. Earl A. Goldsmith, he is a Canadian. Please don't hold that against him, Steve.
Maybe that explains a few things.
Well, and he actually, this was recorded in Indianapolis, Indiana, from the
Go Hoosiers
Christian Training Institute. This is a really interesting one, and I am really stoked to get going.
Ironic that it starts with a pregnant pause right here.
Yes.
It is a wonderful thing that you're taking time out of a busy schedule to consider the needs of your preteen son. The old adage asks, snips and snails and puppy dogs' tails. Is that what little boys are made of?
Snails? Is he telling me to get a vasectomy already?
In the purchase of this material,
he's talking about the needs of your son, but he doesn't talk about the terrible teenage smell.
It is proper for me to warn you that your responsibilities to your son may be increased by the use of this material. To stimulate a boy's thinking and see proper questions asked because of this stimulation,
I don't think so.
Convinces me that this information can be a help. When he comes to you with his questions, you may see this as a personal hazard.
Oh, yes.
Be prepared to help
him. Of course I do.
When you can't answer him forthrightly, promise him the requested information and find it from some reputable source. Give it to him at your earliest convenience.
Like the internet.
May I also suggest two other very important items.
Maybe.
Listen to your son's side of this presentation before he does. If possible, take the time for a couple of thoughtful hearings, then listen to your son's side as he listens.
While staring at him the entire
sketches
time.
Or diagrams
Eye contact is
of male
very
and female
important when
sex
talking to your
organs.
teenage boy
Have them
about
available
sex.
to
Yes.
show your son as you audit his side of the record with him. Modern-day educators are concerned over whose responsibility it is to educate a child about love and sex. Three major sources of information on sex knowledge are the home, the school, and the church.
He forgot one. My uncle.
Down through the years, it has taken intelligence,
every family has one of
courage,
those
and a
uncles.
straightforward attitude to deal with such a delicate matter. As parent and counselor, it seems to me that the problem is not receiving sex education too early, but at the center lies the problem of receiving sex information from an improper source. The
Like your
proverb
uncle?
that applies is knowledge is
or
better
the streets,
than mystery.
high school.
Conceivably, home, school, and church should link forces in favor of our children.
But the
and
power
their
of
needs.
sex and puberty combined, they will link
Sex
forces.
education is not giving a child a book to read that has pictures of the various organs of both sexes. It is not the playing of a record when a boy or girl reaches a certain indefinable stage of life.
It's a je
It
ne
is
sais
not
quoi.
assuming that your child knows the facts of life.
Isn't that the
Sex
show with
education
Judy
is a
and Blair?
continuing process.
I'm not sure, but you take the
This
good, you take
process
the
begins
bad,
at birth
you take the
and
things you never
continues through
had.
life. Every
Good
time
point.
your child is aware of some sexual difference, he is involved in that learning process.
Like base skills.
This process may
Right.
well include telling, reading, and listening. In its best setting, the education of your son should take place daily as he becomes acquainted with himself and the world
Or
about
acquainted
him
too
with
much.
respect to his sexual nature.
So talk
As
about
parents
sex
and educators,
every
we are prone to
day.
leave out some part of sex education because of a problem marked taboo.
Like all of
Remember,
it.
many of the sex-related
Every
problems that
single
your child
thing.
may face will be complicated by his ignorance of the facts. It is hoped
An
that this
ignorant
presentation
teenager,
will deal
Steve?
with your own
No,
reluctance
those don't exist.
face up to your responsibility in the matter of your son's education, as well as provide a proper stimulus
Oh, I'm
for
very
effective
stimulated
thinking
now.
in a young boy's life.
There's a lot of loaded language
Without
throughout this whole
well-defined
thing.
objectives in life and family education, the way to a rich and full experience for our children will be poorly marked. Beyond the area of accurate information, there lies the purpose of affecting attitudes and conduct related to the desirable adjustment
He likes
of the two
alliteration.
sexes.
He really
The emotional,
does.
spiritual, and social factors involved are of equal or greater importance than the child's acquisition of information on the physical aspects of sex.
I feel like I'm
and
listening to a
human
mechanic's
reproduction.
manual how to put together a
Four
starter.
goals
Yeah,
appear to
it,
be
it
in
does
view.
have an IKEA vibe.
The first is
Right.
physical, the second emotional, the third spiritual, and last of all, there is the social facet.
Is that like
The
a water
following may
facet?
be identified
Steve,
in the light
that's
of all
faucet.
four
Oh.
objectives.
Oh, okay.
Number one, an adequate knowledge of sex and reproduction, including the physical characteristics of both male and female reproductive organs.
Again,
An
brought to you by
understanding of the
Google.
role that sex plays in the development of human personality. A recognition of sex as a force, either for good or evil, being creative and productive for the enrichment of life, or destructive and a major contributing force for human misery. An
With great power
explanation of
comes
sexual
great
feelings that are
responsibility, Steve.
experienced through
Yes,
the
it
years
does.
I really
that
think
lead
that's
to
what
maturity.
Uncle Ben, as he was dying,
An approach that will
was
free
trying
our
to
boys
tell
and girls from inner
Spider-Man about the
conflicts
birds
and
and the bees.
unwholesome inhibitions.
That's a good point.
A control
just missed the
over the
whole thing.
emotions that are particularly related to sexual behavior. An accepted set of standards with which the individual can live in spiritual harmony, which will lay down a framework on which to build a satisfying
Now he's trying to
sexual
build a house with a
in
framework.
a
well, and
family
I always try to lay
setting.
down something else when it comes
An
to
expectation
sex.
of a happy life in either
You're just
sexual
wrong.
role
Sorry.
as husband and father or wife and mother. A realization that sexual feelings must be expressed in a setting of social responsibility. A planned and gradual emotional, physical, and spiritual independence from parents.
That's
the
true.
age
You don't want
limits
to have
of
sex
this
with your parents.
presentation preclude
Oh, no,
some of the
no.
objectives stated.
That gets
It
into a
should be
whole Freudian
recognized,
thing.
however, that all 10 objectives should be met
10
during the
objectives?
teen years. A religious zealot is reported to have said, "I find it hard to reconcile sex with the purity of God." This
And that
poor man
zealot's
spent
wife
his
was
entire
quoted as
career
saying, "Oh,
trying
well,
to
that explains a
understand
lot."
why God instituted sex. His prime concern focused upon the process of human reproduction and why he believed it should have been non-sexual.
Non-sexual?
Two basic plans
Well,
are evident in the
non-sexual,
scriptures.
but that's basically the
First,
same
being
thing.
redemption.
Yeah, I get it.
by which God enables man to be reclaimed. The second is reproduction. In the early chapters of the Bible, there are at least 5 references where God commands his creation be fruitful and multiply.
Only
The
5?
cynic who
Yeah.
continues to
I
question
thought sex
sex
happened a lot more
and
than
its
just 5 times in the Old
reasonableness
Testament.
does so
Oh.
in the face of the scriptures, the facts of life, and the purposes
The
for which
facts of
sex
life?
is given. Unlike the animal, man is a sexual creature in that he might have a special way to demonstrate his love. Someone has described sex in an acceptable connotation as
An
two married
acceptable
people
connotation?
in love, presenting themselves to each other physically, emotionally, and spiritually for the other partner's benefit.
While being
Obviously,
completely
man is a
clothed.
sexual
Yes,
creature
and then writing
capable
letters of deep
reproducing
affection to
himself.
each other in separate
Thus,
rooms,
an
and then
expression of
sending
love
them in the
between
mail.
husband and wife may
is
result in
the
a
way of
life
love.
being brought into existence.
In the 60s or 50s.
The third
This
and
is
oft overlooked reason for sexual differences
so
in
appallingly
men and women
dry.
is related to the emotions. In the fulfillment that should characterize adequate sex relations within the marriage bond, there is provided a very important emotional release.
Steve, we're going to have to rip
This
the
is not to
lampshade
say
off
that
this
emotions
guy's
are
head.
not expressed in other ways,
Can
such
you
as
just
anger,
hear the joy?
fear, or tears. For the married couple, there is an additional outlet of mutually satisfying sexual experiences.
All right, now here we
Let
go.
us imagine
Here we go.
a steel wire represents the human mind.
Steel wire.
Attached to that wire is
building
a
a
weight
car
that represents the
house?
individual self and the sum total of all his experiences and his present environment.
That's a big wire.
Take Mr.
Yeah.
and Mrs. A, for example. John A is quite a worrier.
Johnny.
On the wire that represents his mind, there hangs a weight which represents his problems. It weighs 10 tons. Mrs. A also bears the weight of all her experiences. And because her anxieties are less than her husband's, the
Why
weight
are
she
her
carries
anxieties
may
less?
be 5 tons.
5
At
tons.
the instant of mutual
Hers should
or
be
nearly
more from
mutual
putting up with
fulfillment
him.
in their
I know.
sexual
This is
relations,
suspension bridge
the
level
weights on
tension
both Mr. and
that he's
Mrs.
talking
A's
about.
lives
Yes,
are
it is.
lifted momentarily. The problems
Temporarily.
remain, circumstances are unchanged, but
Honey,
there
there's
is
still
an
oppressive
instant
stress
when the weight
everywhere,
is lifted
but I felt
in each
better
life.
for a few seconds.
A good marriage should
Thank
provide
you.
this important emotional release.
Emotional.
Your understanding of these basic factors concerning the reasons for sex can help you guide your son to a wholesome understanding of
And you
such
can only have
important
sex
factors.
within those reasons.
The
Not just
generation
for
of which
fun.
your son is a part faces
No joy
an
here.
unprecedented age of sexual stimulation. A veritable barrage of sex and sex symbols will be directed
Sex
toward
symbols.
him and his
Yeah.
concept of life.
I know, and this is
Add
from
to
the
this the
60s.
natural
The sex-
curiosity that
okay,
you would
well,
expect
does he mean
from a growing
diagrams? 'Cause
boy,
I have,
Yeah.
and
I
a
have
new sense of
diagrams right here.
What do you
responsibility
have,
will
Brian?
begin to dawn
He
upon
said
you.
earlier to bring sex
It is
diagrams.
well to remember
so I did.
that the
I brought my own.
so-called facts
the-
of life have
Are
not
those
changed.
actual
The age at which
size?
these facts are shared
Steve,
has changed,
It's not
and
the
in
size
turn
of
the
the diagram.
atmosphere
It's
in
how
which
you
these
use
facts
it.
are
Oh,
revealed
I see.
contributes or detracts
You're so
from the
immature.
You should
emotional
put those up and
well-being of
hide
your
them.
child. Facts in themselves
put
are
'em back.
cold and impersonal. To deal with
Cold
these
and
facts
impersonal,
as a child's
like his
natural
wife.
curiosity develops creates the needed climate to translate them into life. Natural curiosity should show itself through questions asked in a natural fashion. 4 major areas of classification have been noted by educators in this field.
And here they are.
They are, number 1,
I don't know.
pregnancy and prenatal development. Number 2,
Go ask
birth
your mom.
and early feeding of a child. Number 3,
What do you think it
conception and
is?
how it takes place. Number 4,
We'll talk
sexual
later.
differences related to mating, who should have
The
babies,
primary means of avoidance
menstruation,
of all things
seminal
uncomfortable.
emission,
Right.
and miscellaneous subjects.
Seminal emission, Steve,
As you can see, an
because
attempt
it's
has been
very
made to place the
important.
questions of
Isn't
your son
Seminole a city in
into
Florida?
well-defined categories.
No, it's not.
It is well
Oh,
to note that
It's an
the
indigenous
arrangement
tribe,
is not
but that's
in sequence.
not what he's going after
For example, pregnancy and birth are followed by conception.
I would
This
hope so.
stems from
Thank
the
you,
fact
Captain
that the child
Obvious.
is
Yeah.
prone to question that which he observes first. Logical thought process,
Wait, what?
What happened?
correction, logical thought
Steve, I thought he
processes
finished
may then
prematurely.
lead him to question the origin of a baby.
Whew, I'm glad he's
That was
still
The
close.
order of the areas questioned is significant
You go,
in that
Dr.
the opposite
Goldsmith.
sex and its characteristics come into prominent view. It is insufficient for your boy to understand only male sexual characteristics and functions. His natural
Insufficient?
curiosity will lead him to raise questions about the female body and its functions.
It feels
The
like we're
subject of
talking
sexual
about sex
differences
while
may
also
well be
building a
raised
dresser.
during questions about pregnancy and conception.
What's this hammer
Because
for?
there is a
and
wide
this
spectrum
screwdriver?
of
Oh, we'll talk
stimuli
later.
provided from one family setting to another, it is impossible to anticipate when and where such questions will be raised.
Hopefully
Your
at the
son
dinner
has
table.
an inborn curiosity
With
about
guests.
himself and the world about him.
Hello, Grandma.
If his questions concerning his body and its functions go unanswered, he will find the answers elsewhere.
Like high
If
school.
his questions
In
are
a
not
gym,
answered honestly,
PE class.
he will develop suspicions concerning himself instead of the trust he so desperately needs.
He will
In
turn
many
to
years of
communism.
counseling, it has been an amazing experience to encounter adults who seriously lack detailed information concerning intimate things. Consequently, the
That explains a
simplest
lot
of
about
terms
people.
have been necessary
It does.
in
It
attempting
also,
to lay down
I'm
a
still
framework
confused why intimate
upon which an
things.
understanding
He can't
relationship
say it
could be
either.
built.
No.
The use of highly technical words may aid the counselor,
Technical
but
words,
such
Steve.
use may
Yeah,
leave
like
the
wee-wee
counselee without
and
the
bum.
information he needs.
Or nutty parts.
Your responsibility as a parent is to know and use the proper terms. Making the explanation
exactly?
or description of such terms as simple as you can. In addition to the will to help your son, your next most vital asset is your ability to communicate effectively.
Oh, you missed it.
A boy who knows little asks a boy who knows little. Someone has said, from little comes little.
That was
In
my
many
wife.
cases, this search for information may be described as, from nothing, nothing comes.
Also my wife.
It is essential for you as a parent to understand your son's pattern of development. During these preteen years, your son is learning the skills that are necessary for physical games. He is developing a concept of himself that he will tend to carry through life. At this stage of growth and development, his peer group will become very important. You should see him emerging with characteristics that are easily recognized as boyish.
Like making fart jokes.
Intellectually, this is the time for an adequate framework to be laid down in his life so that he can develop skills in the 3 R's.
Reading,
An adequate
writing,
concept of
and
life and its
arithmetic.
realities develops in this pre-adolescent period. And finally, his sense of moral values will be established during this age. Each age grouping through early adulthood is important. However, the foregoing should impress you with the seriousness of the needs of your son at his present age. Perhaps you've noted that sex as such is not mentioned in the list we've quoted.
What?
However, it
what is this record about?
Factor and is closely tied to physical, emotional, and spiritual development. Water rises no higher than its source.
And kids are no smarter than their parents.
Your son's concept of sex and related matters will not be better or more adequate than yours. Here are some points to ponder. First, be certain you have a good grasp of the facts yourself. Number 2, consider the pitfalls you might have avoided if someone had helped you as you intend to help your son. Number 3, avoid a double standard for your own behavior. Our children are more alert to our real concepts than you think. Number 4, distinguish between that which is genuinely amusing and that which is vulgar.
It's all the same to me.
Number 5,
I know.
be sincere in your attitude toward intimate things, and you will engender the necessary confidence your son should place in you. Number 6, don't overlook the spiritual overtones, because sex seems to be bound to physical and emotional
this guy has
development.
some issues.
Here then are some questions to answer. Do you shrink from accepting responsibility for giving sex information
Sometimes
to your
when I
child?
go in the pool, I shrink from responsibility.
Should mothers help their daughters and fathers assist their sons in this vital area?
Yes.
No.
Will giving honest answers to sex questions encourage your child to be too interested in sexual matters?
Yes.
True. Are you embarrassed when you see affection demonstrated?
Always.
Are you ever ashamed about your own interest in sex?
Yes.
Would you prefer your child should read a book or listen to a record on sex in place of talking to him personally?
If you want to sell your record, Dr. Goldsmith.
For all 6 questions
what's your business
no.
plan?
And as you think through your feelings, you should uncover the reason for whatever reluctance you experience in this area.
Think through your feelings.
In the light
like
of these
Spock.
points to ponder and questions to answer, what are my basic obligations to my child? To assist in your ability to recall, let us say you owe your son 5 A's.
Like
the first
grades?
one is atmosphere.
Oh,
Atmosphere is that which a family creates in the process of daily living.
So light some
Each
candles.
member of the family makes his or her contribution.
Play some Kenny
But the
G
adults
while
in
you're
the home
talking.
carry the major responsibility. Your family unit has a need for a climate in which each member can be comfortable as a person, get along
like
reasonably
warm
well
climates.
with others, and have a sense of individuality, that is, a feeling of importance and being needed. Attitudes and atmosphere are inseparably
He
bound
loves
together.
that letter A.
Adult
really
attitudes set the
does.
climate for the home. As parents, your attitude toward any subject will form the basis for action or reaction on the part of other
Hey,
members
we're learning
of the
about
family
physics.
unit.
Yeah.
If you or your spouse
If we
have
learn
a
about
closed
animals,
mind
we'll
on
learn
sharing
about
information
alpacas.
Yes.
on sex,
And antelopes.
your children are likely to sense and even share those feelings. The third has to do with answers, because they follow
Answers.
close
Another A.
on the heels of your attitudes. It is unusual for a child not to ask questions.
It's better
If he
than
does
asking
not
dumb
ask
questions.
you, several
guess.
reasons may exist. He may be afraid of you. Conceivably, you might laugh at him.
Well, of course
or you
I
might not
will.
see his question
both
as seriously as he does. These conclusions are generally reached on the basis of your previous responses to your son's queries. Honest answers are
Like
the
when I
outgrowth
cried when
of
he
your
asked me
honest
about
attitude
sex.
toward the subject of sex. The advent of the stork or the birds and bees type of response may be quite transparent to a young child in our highly sexualized society.
Next, he's going to
There
say
is
the Easter
no
Bunny isn't
excuse
real.
at any age for myths
Steve,
and
we gotta talk
fables
after this is
about
over.
sex.
Oh, okay.
Number 4 is appropriate sensitivity.
I'm never appropriate.
Appropriate
Ooh, and
sensitivity
I'm pretty
suggests
sensitive.
awareness of your son's immediate needs.
With our powers
Where he stands
combined,
now with respect
We will be
to
appropriately
accurate information
sensitive.
on sexual matters will make your current contribution to his learning process meaningful. Assuming your family unit has a good climate
We know what
for
happens
free
when you
discussion
assume.
on any
yes, you
subject,
insult Uma
it
Thurman.
will not
Yes.
be difficult to see to what degree he comprehends the following: pregnancy and prenatal development, birth and early feeding of a child, conception and how it takes place, and the
This is the
relationship of
order?
sexual differences as we have described them, related to mating, who should have babies, menstruation, and seminal emission.
I think he's
Your
pronouncing that
sensitivity
wrong.
to the level of your
No,
boy's
I think he's
comprehension will
nailing
be a
it.
great assist in helping him further. Number 5 is actions. Actions and activities are the
And
direct
the acclamation of adherence of the antelope in the annual activity.
And the individuals who
You and
comprise
this guy
it.
would get along
A
great.
sense of duty to discuss does not have the
Duty.
motivating force of facing a challenge to help
It's the little things.
in the learning
I know.
process. Children in their developing minds are alert to the consistency of actions when compared with current attitudes. Such inconsistency can be illustrated by the parent who insists on honesty from his child, but encourages him to lie about his age when purchasing tickets on the bus.
Oh,
Your
boy.
actions should
Steve,
coincide with the attitudes you
Do
are
you really
attempting
think
to
teenage
create
boys are
in
only
the home.
lying about their age on the bus?
The learning process
Who rides
is dependent
a
upon
paid
the
city
child's
bus?
questions.
I know.
When he does not state his
Steve, I'll give
questions
you a quick
orally,
thing.
you
You
may
want to know
ask,
how
what
you can
do
tell
we
a
do
teenage
then?
boy is lying?
You may be
How?
interested
Their
to know
mouth is
the reason
moving.
for
This
your
is
son's
true.
apparent silence. Your current family circumstances may not lead him to think about sex. Not
You
having
may be
faced
cold
the
and frigid.
prospect of the advent of a baby sister or brother,
Hey, Advent. He's talking
the
about
lack
Christmas.
of family
Yeah, there's a
pets
baby.
with babies of their own may have deprived your son of the opportunity to observe.
Why did you have
If
only
your
one
son
child?
sees sex as
You're
dirty,
a sinner.
he may have found answers to his questions outside the family circle. Remember, the silence of your child on the subject does not relieve you of your responsibility to provide
No, I'll
information
just enjoy
through
the
effective
silence.
communications. Recommended methods of encouraging questions are the use of the arrival of a baby in the neighborhood as an opportunity.
So I should go door to
discuss
door
the
asking if
hows
anybody's had a
and
baby?
wheres. Number
Greetings,
2,
Do you have a baby?
discuss
Do you have
some
a baby?
basic concepts regarding reproduction in animals.
You do have a baby.
Leading
Can
into
I
an
borrow this to
understanding of
explain
human
how
body
this small
functions.
human came about?
Number 3, the possibility of close relatives expecting a baby should be and could be used as a starter.
That's Aunt
Should
Mildred.
you feel
Your
inadequate
uncle
in
went to
using
town.
these suggestions, the best method for you might be a relating of your son's birth, your thoughts and expectations prior
You
to
see,
his
son,
arrival,
it was our
and a
anniversary.
gradual attempt
We went out to
raise
dinner,
significant
had
questions
drinks,
in his mind.
and then
The natural
we had
repetition
each
of
other.
your son's own story
And then we had
may
you.
well provide
Let
the
me describe
answers to
that in
questions
detail.
he felt he could or should not ask.
Or
The
would
husband
not
and
ever
wife who
want
are
to know.
openly and honestly affectionate with one another are teaching their children to love and to be loved.
Whoa.
Because love is a learned
True
response,
love.
your son
It's a
must see
dweeb
a
within a
demonstration
dweeb.
of affection which he can copy. The facts of life and love are cold words unless they are related to a dynamic show of true affection. Teaching him how
He's
to be
really teaching
affectionate without
dynamism
an
here.
illustration
Yes.
may be likened to a carpenter building a house without a
There
blueprint.
it goes with the carpenter thing again.
Many of the
Yeah,
principles
well,
given
you
here
know.
will increase the potential for happiness in each member of the family, in addition to providing important instruction in living for your son. In conclusion, let me
Yay!
remind you that
We
man was
made it!
made a sexual creature because he was to be able to have a deep expression of his love for his partner, to enable him
You know,
to
all
reproduce
these, and he never
himself,
said
and to
penetrating.
enjoy a
Yes. I
special
was
emotional
really
outlet
wanting
in the
penetrating.
marriage bond. May you be enabled to better understand the facts of life for yourself and be able to teach your offspring by precept and example that life and love can be very satisfying.
Life and love.
Satisfying.
Satisfying. Not great. Not amazing. But
Just-
perfectly adequate.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think I have an appointment with my children this evening to talk to them. Because I am all knowledged up.
Man. Okay, Steve. I love this guy. Dr. Earl A. Goldsmith, I want to make sure I get his name right, has a clear vision that he is also working towards. He does have a problem, though. His problem is this. The parents that want to buy a record about sex are almost certainly going to be comfortable talking about sex with their kids.
Right.
And the ones that won't. He wants to reach kids.
That's my club.
Yeah, but he needs the parents to buy in, and I just don't think he got that in the way that he wanted. Hence, how he ended up with us.
Right, and making a record so we could have fun.
Oh, wow. Steve, I am so excited for side 2, but
yes,
this has been such fun.
Since we're supposed to listen to it with your son, maybe we should have a couple of teenagers join in with us, you think?
I think you can ask all you want.
I think it'd be fun for them to join us as we talk about this.
It could, but I have truly enjoyed listening to this. It's records like this, Steve, that are what convinced me that this would be a fun podcast to do.
Yes, and it has been very fun so far. So thank you for joining us and putting up with our rants and everything today. If you want to contact us, make any comments, recommendations maybe even, or snide remarks, you can contact us at vinylword22@gmail.com.